Thanks, Robert. Very interesting presentation. I'm going to go back to the office of more patents. But thanks for the time. My name is Behzad Mohebbi. As Robert introduced, I'm the CEO of a startup here in San Diego. Today I'm going to talk about wireless evolution and the applicability of it to IoT connectivity. And I can say connectivity used to be really the kingpin of cellular, any communication, cellular communication, until the iPhone was launched. And when iPhone was launched by Apple, or more precisely Steve Jobs, it had a 2G modem in it. And when everybody was fighting, I want to have the latest 3G modem, the highest speed, I think iPhone showed that the customer or the marketplace doesn't really, connectivity is important, but what is more important is what you do with that connectivity. A mobile platform or the software that goes with it is probably more important than connectivity itself. In fact, you could see the industries change. When I was growing up, professionally, it was Nokia, Ericsson, which dominated the landscape of the communication, mobile communication. Now it's Google, Apple, and companies that develop software and mobile computing platforms. But with that said, that doesn't mean connectivity has gone away. It's just matured to a level where we solve the problem almost at the background, and people don't really see what we go through. So this is, if you like, it's a timeline of what's happened. If you look at it carefully, you see that every 10 years there is a new system on the market, and that's not a coincidence. There is ITU and IMT requirements every, they have IMT 2000 and IMT 2010 and 20. So they actually encourage people to come up with new systems. And why do we do that? It's because really the applications are different, and the requirements and the expectations are high. So we started with mobile radios where you really didn't have any mobilities or anything. It was a big box that you had to carry with yourself. Can't find this. Is it at the top here?
Second.
And then we had the analog systems, 1G as they call it, the most famous ANT and TAX. And then in the 1990s, the first GSM, the first digital network came out, GSM. At the same time, a little bit later, IS-95 came out in the US by Qualcomm. And there were a couple of other systems that they subsequently dropped out, and the winners were really CDMA 2000 and wideband CDMA that survived to 3G. And then, if you like, the evolution of these was the 4G, which is long-term evolution, LTE, and then when we get to 5G, it's evolved LTE, which is evolved long-term evolution. So you have evolution twice, for what it's worth. And although they were sort of introduced every 10 years, that didn't stop people to evolve this system. So say you go from 2G to 2.5, where you add a packet switch component to the network, because 2G was predominantly circuit switch. And then with 3G, you add the HSPA, which is high speed packet radio, or 1x CDDO. And with LTE, it's LTE Advanced and millimetric wave, which is another flavor of 5G. In fact, 5G becomes very confusing for people because you go on the internet and there are a lot of 5G trials, and you say, well, 5G is out. But at the same time, 3GPP has not really finished release 14 and release 15 5G. And the confusion comes from the fact that 5G is being used as a marketing tool by a lot of operators. What they're doing is they're using LTE carrier aggregation. It's a feature of LTE that you can add other frequencies to a main dominant anchor frequency. And they're adding millimetric wave, things above 28 gigahertz, and that they call that 5G. But the real 5G that 3GPP is going to endorse, that comes out in 2020. Now, at the same time as these net systems, cellular systems were coming out, there was another development which was more on a personal level, and that was the Wi-Fi or 802.11 standards. And it started with B, which was a very rudimentary system. It went to A, and subsequently G and N, and now you're talking about AC. Today you can buy handsets with AC, and then what's on the horizon is AX, which is a high density version of it. And then there is the AH flavor, which is at 900 megahertz, that's being used for IoT, and AD, which is at 60 gigahertz, which is really replacing your cables connecting to anything which requires high data rate. Now these two have integrated to some extent. Today you can have Wi-Fi calling with most of the operatives here. You can receive your calls through Wi-Fi. That's because there's some interworking functions. And for 5G, the promise of 5G is actually to integrate even more any other access technologies. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But one thing you notice here is that you started with 1G. There were a lot of systems, and every region had its own system. You know, Nordic, Mobile Telecom, and so on, and NTT had it as well. Then it got this. When it got to 3G, there were really two dominant regions. This was, if you like, Europe and Asia, and then US introduced system. When it got to LTE, there's only one system really. Nobody's got the stomach to develop another one because it's getting expensive, and it has to get adopted by the customers. And really 5G is all about one system. So the good thing about the standardization is that you get a good, mature system being designed, accepted by everybody. The unfortunate thing is the competition goes out and you get what you get at the end of it. So what is a 1G? So let's quickly look at what has been really the evolution of cellular network. The 1G was analog. There was no security. I remember when I was a PhD student, I used to have a radio. I could listen to anybody's conversation. Not that I did, but I could have done that. And they were cellular in the sense that there was a reuse. You go from one cell to the other because they had to reuse the spectrum. And they were connected to what was known as a mobile telecom switching office. And there were really one office, say, for every city. And if you were on the boundary of these MTSOs, you didn't have mobility. You dropped the hand, you dropped the call. So there was really not full mobility. There was no security. And these are the things that mobile network is supposed to give to you. There was no, if you like, policy, control, charging functions. It was very rudimentary. It connected you to PSTN, so you could have a phone call. The things that is missing at the bottom was only voice only, limited mobility, and the transmission was continuous analog. So when we went to digital radios, things got a little bit better. First of all, mobility got better. It moved closer to the mobile. It went from the MSC or the NTSO to the base station controller. So the base station controller took most of the mobility. Unless you went between BSCs, then MSC would take care of the mobility and handoff. The phone now has a chip, a SIM card, which takes care of your security. And really that security has stayed with us and hasn't been really breached as such. So it was a pretty good, if you like, innovation. It came out of France. A lot of people didn't want it at the beginning, and the French pushed it into 3GPP. Now we thank them for that. But apart from that, everything else stayed the same. It was mostly voice, connecting you to PSTN. The other thing is, you will notice that a continuous became 20 millisecond packets, and you see these packets get smaller and smaller as the networks evolve, and there is a reason for that. But the next step was really to add a packet switch route to the circuit switch. The circuit switch was taking care of MSC and to PSTN. Then the GPRS was added to GSM, which is SGSN and GCSN, and that connected you to the internet. It was very low data rate, but nevertheless it was a packet radio arrangement. So with the 3G networks, what happened was that they kept the packet switch and circuit switch arrangement as before, but they brought the mobility closer to the mobile. And now BSCs before didn't talk to each other. Now they put an interface here that the RNCs communicate with each other. So the handoff is getting closer to the mobile. And handoff is very important for mobile network. It's one of the most important things. And when you see 5G, you realize we've had a leap of, if you like, innovation with handoffs. Security stayed the same, and And the rest of the system pretty much the same. The packets are getting smaller now. It's getting 10 milliseconds instead of 20 milliseconds. And then when it gets to 4G, it's, if you notice, actually when you go through from 3G to 4G, the circuit switch part drops. So there is no MSC anymore, it's all IP now. They call it serving gateway and packet gateway, but basically this is your SGSN and the gateway for the PDN, GGSN. And then, and now your PSTN goes through IMS. There is another box now, which is known as integrated multimedia services, and that's essential. Now that's part of LTE, otherwise you won't have VoLTE. The security is pretty much taken care of, same, which really shows the strength of the SIM. It was very good innovation for its time. Now the packets are 1 millisecond because we want to reduce the latency. The latency of the link is very much sensitive to how much data you buffer. And that has to come down for 5G because they want to go to really low latency connections. The mobility has moved really as close as possible to the mobile. It's really base stations now talk to each other. There's an X2 link, and so, but predominantly the rest of it stays the same, and it's now packet. Now you still see two boxes here: SGSN and S gateway and P gateway. The two boxes were there for mobile IP. Basically, when they designed the system, they said, how do we find this mobile when it's roaming around between base stations? And this is the best thing they came up with at the time. This is your home agent, if you like, and this is the visiting agent for those who understand mobile IP, and that's how they would find you in the network. But if you look at the 5G, that's gone. IP network will find you. You don't really need a mobile IP. A lot of people have servers and they find you. So that box is gone. It's not really needed. It was an artifact of the past. Now you have what is known as user plane function. And that's your data goes through there. There are other boxes I haven't shown here, but that takes care of the control plane, which is different. SIM is still with us, and I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. What is what the packet size are? Because now the new radio has to be defined. There are going to be more radios that you connect to 5G. There's going to be millimetric, and that is something to watch out for because that defines your latency. It's packet switch only. Mobility is at IP level, and what I mean is that really now it really doesn't matter if you have this connection or not. There is no circuit switch. Now you can actually go from one radio to a totally different radio like Wi-Fi, and it's the IMS that takes care of mobility. But basically you tell IMS, this is my new IP address, and it sends the packet to a new node. So I think we got over mobility once we got rid of the circuit switch. So this evolution, what does it mean for IoT? Because now we have IoT, and remember one of the requirements for 5G was always connect at a larger scale, because you have many IoT devices. And if you look at the range of IoT applications, you can be on a ship talking to a satellite if you're doing container, you're watching your containers where they are in the world. They could be in a fleet of cars that you're on the cellular, you're following your goods and services. They could be in a warehouse where you could be using Wi-Fi. You could be in a hospital, in the basement of a hospital where there are no cellular coverage, or you could be in a smart home where there are lots of little devices that connect to the network. Because of this range, you need a range of connectivity ideas as well. One connectivity on itself cannot really meet all these requirements. Like people want to use cellular. Verizon is making something like $700 million today from IoT. It's mostly in the realm of fleet management and reading your meters outside. But when you go inside, Verizon really, or any other cellular operator doesn't have really any idea how to provide that service for you. But in terms of platform, an IoT service provider has to be able to provide outdoor, indoor, the transition from indoor to outdoor services. It has to provide short range, long range services. So what choices do they have? Well, obviously they have all the cellular networks, all the generations of the cellular networks except the 1G are out there. In fact, GSM is being used extensively in Europe for IoT, for reading meters. It's 200 kilohertz bandwidth, The link budget is very good, so you can actually get deep inside buildings and read meters. So that's still being used, but the promise of 5G is to actually meet this 2G at the same time as meeting the broadband requirements of modern networks. But it's predominantly for outdoor. You have good security, mobility, but it's very expensive because you have a spectrum, you license the spectrum, you have to pay for that, the infrastructure is expensive, and there is the margin on top of it. Then you have, on the other hand, the Wi-Fi, the good old Wi-Fi for indoor. It's for indoor, it's insecure, the security is not there because security is binary. You either have it or you don't have it, you can't have halfway. And then there is some mobility, but the good thing about it is it's very low cost. You almost don't pay anything for it because it's in the unlicensed band or license exempt, and the infrastructure is very cheap. Then you have Bluetooth for very low range. Again, it's insecure, it's for low mobility, but it's low cost again. And then near field communication, which again could be used for IoT, and it's very secure because it's using SIM. There's no mobility and there's no range to it. You have to be next to it, and that has some IoT applications as well. So these are your choices as a mobile operator. Now, if you want, as an IoT operator, service provider, if you want to have a multi-connectivity platform, what do? Well, this is what we do today. The handset, which we make millions and millions of it, and we're supposed to keep it low complexity and cheap because it scales up to billions of handsets. We're actually cramming everything in there. We put 2G, 4G, 3G new modems. So when you get a modem from Qualcomm, it has all of those in there. It even has 2 flavors of 3G. It has CDMA 2000 sometimes, and it has a wide band CDMA. That's a world phone. You can travel everywhere. Sorry. You have Bluetooth, you have a near field communication, and now you have to add 5G. Obviously, this is not an option for IoT. So for IoT, what do you want? You want a core network that takes care of all the different access technology, be it satellite, Wi-Fi, cable, Ethernet, cellular, or other flavors like LoRa. And some of these devices can connect to more than one, they can use more than one access technology, or they can just be very simple IoT devices with one modem. And obviously you want to keep something like SIM because that's your security. This is good because you have a single network identity, there is machine-to-machine communication, there is network-wide mobility, there is a unified security, there is a single network operation and single billing. This would be ideal for an IoT operator. In fact, all the story leads to what we're doing here in our startup. We are actually designing such a thing, we're developing such a platform. Our platform enables you, our gateway enables you to use an LT core network and connect any access technology to this core network. And with one core network, operate all the different interfaces. I think I've run out of time, and thanks very much.